start down on the foot, okay, and then I work approximately from there. I'm going to bring them out just a little bit further, okay. Base of the calf is kind of my target. I start here. I do a fancy thing because I've done this about 1,000,000 times, okay. So you don't have to do it this way. You just need to do circumferential. Start at about the level of the navicular tuberosity, about the apex of the medial longitudinal arch. Let's get a circumferential ring around there. I do some fancy little things here. You're just covering the skin surface. We don't need 6 inches thick of pre-wrap, okay? We just need a layer, okay? Overlap it a little bit, get up to about the base of the calf, and it's done, okay? It's not sticky at all, so sometimes it'll come undone. If every once in a while, though, sometimes you'll get a little bit of a roll. If your angle's off, it'll roll up a little bit. If you just grab a little roll and pinch, you can pull it right off, and it's not a source of issue, okay? We're just looking for a layer of pre-wrap, okay, to help protect the skin. The first strips of any tape application, we're going to do it with thumb, with wrist, with elbow, with knee, with toe, anything. The first strips that get applied are called anchor strips. The purpose of anchor strips is to give other strips of tape that we're going to do in a little bit something to stick to. Okay? So anchor strips are just there to give the other strips of tape stuff to stick to. So we're going to do some proximal anchors and we're going to do a distal anchor. Okay? Proximal anchors are going to be at the level of the base of the calf. If you do the overhand tape method, here's your first lesson. The side of the tape is down. Okay? Is his leg cylindrical here? Or is it tapered? Tapered. It's tapered. It's only about cylindrical right about there, just above the ankle, where it's perfectly round. The rest of it tapers up. So you kind of have to take that into consideration. If I tried to just go straight all the way around, I'm going to have a gap in the tape where it's not going to adhere to the leg. So you kind of have to have the strips of the tape are going to point towards his head, the ends of them, and then that angle is going to get smaller, 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 smaller. Where his leg is cylindrical, it can be straight, and then any strip that's going to go beyond that is going to point in the opposite direction. The strips are going to point towards me. So away from me above the ankle, at the ankle, and then towards me, the taper, as you move towards the foot. Does that make sense to everybody? So as you follow the contour of the leg, and it takes a little bit of time to develop that. I don't tape overhand, so I'll probably make this look a little ugly. I'll get a little angle to that. I come around, I transfer the tape from one hand to the other, and I tear it. Okay? That's an anchor strip. Underhand starts sticky side up. I get to stick my finger in a hole. How much fun is that? Right? You guys all got that on tape. Okay? That shit better not be on YouTube later. Okay? Sticky side up, my middle finger in the middle of the hole of the roll of tape. I'm going to pull, same strip, it's another anchor, overlapping about a half. I'm going to pull some tape out. I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to pull up, I'm going to tear that tape, and I'm going to lay it down. Okay? That is harder to become proficient with, but it's much more efficient. Because if I'm doing overhand, we usually do 3 to 4 anchors, okay? 3 to 4 proximal anchors, depending upon the size of the person. Tall people, 4 anchors, okay? Because it's going to give more surface area for more strips of tape to stick to, okay? Short people, 3 is plenty. Okay, I'm going to do a bunch more here just to show you some stuff that can happen. Overhand, my tape leaves that hand, transfers to this hand, leaves that hand, transfers back to this hand. Okay, how many different opportunities do I have to, right, I just dropped the tape, right? If I do underhand method, that tape never leaves my hand. Okay, so I can go really quick with that. People can tape fast overhand, especially as they become proficient with it, they become pretty good with it, but there's more opportunities for the to happen, okay, and with the underhand method, not as much. Try both of them the first few times and see which feels better to you, and if the overhand feels better to you, feels more comfortable to you, whatever, knock yourself out, that's fine, okay, I don't require you to do one or the other, I just want to expose you to both. If you do the underhand, okay, if you take, I can't do that nanu stuff, okay? Between my middle finger and my ring finger, I hold the tape, okay? I use index and thumb to tear, and then I slide it out to smooth it down, okay? So I use that, I hold it there, index finger and thumb are my tears, my rips or my tear for the tape, and then I slide that tape out and I lay it down. That's another thing that takes a little while to become proficient at, but it can work, okay? Distal anchor should never go beneath the level of the apex of the longitudinal arch. If we get an anchor down here, it compresses the metatarsals. Is he in a weight-bearing or non-weight-bearing position? Non-weight-bearing. If I put something that's restrictive, this tape has no flexibility to it, right, by design. Okay, it's not elastic. If I put something circumferential around there while he's unweight-bearing, that's okay. As soon as he goes a step down, what's going to happen? Jeez, I can't walk. My metatarsals can't splay out to allow me to absorb that body weight, right? So we don't want to have that way down at the metatarsal. So we want to go down to that tarsal region, about the level of that navicular tuberosity that we palpated earlier, right? For my money, I just do a quick over the top, ankle up, tear it, boom, right there. So that tape is right over that navicular tuberosity. I've gone around the foot, I stayed even level with the contour, it's not super tight, and it's not going to affect his body's ability, that foot, to splay out to absorb weight as he stands up, okay? So we've got... Do most people, when they sprain their ankles, do they sprain them in or out? In. They sprain them in, right? So they move into inversion, right? So we want to support the opposite motion more than that motion, because if we pull him into that motion, we kind of increase the risk of injury, right? So we want to keep the ankle neutral, and their job, your job is to initially put that ankle in neutral, and then their job is to stay there and say stay, okay? And then over time he gets talking, some hot girl walks in and they get distracted, or a buddy comes in and then his foot ends up like that. I give him a couple of them. Okay, I'll set him back, and if he continues that stuff, then I just start pulling hair. Okay? And they come around pretty quick. Okay, they learn how to keep their foot neutral. Let them, in an ideal world, he'd be sitting up as well, right? Shorter people, okay, like to lay back on those tables and whatnot because they can relax and chill. You know, Eric was laying down initially. It changes the length relationship. Lay down. Look at his ankle. Lay down. Look what happens to his ankle, right? Sit up. Now he can get to a better position where he can't get to that position when he's laying down, right? We want to create an optimal circumstance here. So you can do a stirrup. We want to go medial to lateral because we want to pull into emphasize eversion, right, on that lateral aspect. So a lot of people will start on the inside, anchor that strip tape down, go right over that medial malleolus, underneath the bottom of the foot. I'm pulling laterally. Scoot yourself out just a little bit further. There you go. I'm pulling. I know that I've got that much cheap tape. I got about that much to do, and I'm going to give a little bit of an emphasis there. Okay? So I've got a stirrup on that I went from medial to lateral. Right? Everybody see that? Okay? So that's a stirrup. That's the start of our closed basket weave. Then I'm going to do, some people call these C's, C, or a U, or a horseshoe. I don't care what you call it. If this stuff is not sticking real well, you can do a quick another anchor over the top of it to help hold it secure in place. It's not mandatory, but if it's not sticking, this tape is about B quality tape. It's not A quality tape. It's good enough. If it's not sticking, then go ahead and do that. Now we're going to do a horseshoe, a C, a U, whatever you want to call it, okay? And I'm going to do my underhand technique, and I'm going to go down towards the heel, and I'm going to pull it from anchor to anchor. I'm not emphasizing one or the other. I'm just creating that pathway. C strip, U strip. The heel should be open, okay? And you'll notice that those strips kind of sort of point a little bit towards me. They're not straight up and down. Because if I went straight up and down, I'd have a gap in the back. It wouldn't follow the contour of the foot very well, just like we talked about with those strips up there, right? So now we've done a stirrup, pulling medial to lateral, and we've done a horseshoe, C, U, whatever you want to call it. Now we're going to repeat that sequence. We do at least 3, depending upon the size of the person, maybe up to 4, okay? Alternates of that. So we keep his foot neutral. Now I'm going to show you an underhand stirrup, okay? Fingers sticky side up, finger in the middle of the tape roll. I'm going to kind of pull out. It takes a little while to learn how much tape to pull out. I'm going to pull and emphasize that. So I still am emphasizing the lateral side, right? reach underneath and tear it, and I just lay that down. So I did the exact same thing, I just did it in a different format. Does that make sense? Because this stuff isn't sticking real well, let me anchor that down quick. Okay, so now I've got a second stirrup. It's not exactly in the same place as the other one. Okay, you want to subtly shift them. Okay, you don't have to start in the middle and then go back and then go forward and then go. Feel, right? But you don't want them all boom, 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 exactly one over the other. You want to give them a little bit of flair to that. Okay, now I'm going to go down and do another horseshoe or U, and I'm going to do that overlapping about a half of the first one, but I've moved proximal. Everybody see that? You start to see the basket weave kind of format that we're taking, right? That lattice work that's coming into play. We're going to do another one, so we're going to do another stirrup. Okay, emphasize. Oh, sit. Sit. Your back killing you?
I'm trying to get out of the way of the video.
Oh,
Stay
all
here
right.
At the same time.
So I'm pushing hard. Okay, Eric will tell you, I'm moving his leg. So I'm really emphasizing that part. Lay it down, reach under and tear that. Secure that so that tape doesn't go anywhere. Okay. And now I'm going to do another U. Okay. Those tape ends just barely came together. That's kind of your mindset for when you're done alternating your stirrups and your U's, is when those tape ends come together. He's not a huge guy, so 3's probably going to be okay for him. If he was a little bit taller or a little bit bigger, thicker person, we'd go to a 4th, or if those ends didn't come together. Once the tape ends on the U's, C's, horseshoes, whatever you want to call them, come together, that's kind of your cue, at least in my world, that we've done enough of that alternating basket weave. Make sense? Okay, so we've got proximal anchors, 3 to 4, a distal anchor no lower than about the middle of that arch, kind of over that navicular tuberosity area, and then with an emphasis from medial to lateral. Okay, stirrup, alternating with a horseshoe, followed by a stirrup, and then another horseshoe, and then another stirrup, and then another horseshoe, at least 3 times, maybe 4, depending upon that person's size. And each one of those things has its own unique little space. These overlap about a half. Those stirrups overlap, but not exactly over one another. We get a little bit of flair with them so that we cover a little bit more surface area. Everybody cool? That is mandatory. Closed basket, weave, ankle tape job. Those steps 100% have to be done in that specific order. Whether you do it the overhand method or the underhand method is irrelevant. It doesn't matter, okay? But you have to do those steps. Everybody good? Now there's other requisite steps that need to be a part of the rest of this tape application, but now it becomes artistic, okay? So we're gonna do some figure 8s, we're gonna do some heel locks, and we're gonna do some closing strips. The order in which we do them is 100% up to you. If you talk to 10 different athletic trainers, you're probably going to see 10 different applications, right? It's an art form. So the strips are what they are. They serve a purpose, each one of them, but how many, the order in which they do them, etc., that's going to vary considerably from one person to the next. I'm going to teach you what I'm comfortable with. That doesn't make mine best or you know, ideal. It makes it my way. And you can talk to somebody else who would have their own little slant angle on that, and that's their way, and that's fine. Okay, so if you interact with someone else who tapes and they see your little video, or you talk to them about what I've told you, they go, well, I like this better. I'm not quite sure I agree with what Jeff's saying. That's their prerogative. And if I was going to, review them, I probably might say something similar to that. Okay, so this is the art form. But I'll show you what all those strips look like, and then you can figure out what feels good for you. Figure 8. Figure 8. Okay, we're going to take a figure 8. Get these fingers here. You got an 8. And we're going to bend it 90 degrees, okay, around the ankle. Make sense? So there's lots of different ways. I'll show you the underhand way. I'm going to do the first part of the 8 around the foot at about the level of that navicular tuberosity. Everybody see I just did an 8. I did a part of an 8, top or bottom half, right? I'm going to go across the malleolus, underneath, come across the top of the other malleolus, tear it, and now I just made my figure 8. So it goes around the foot, and it goes around the ankle. I could just as easily, we wouldn't probably very often do 2 in a row right away, but just to show you, I could start it on the leg, come around, go down to the foot, and come up to my starting point. Let me show you something here too. Watch me, I just used him as a fulcrum for taping. Don't do that. Okay, don't use your patient, okay, as your fulcrum for taping. So if I'm gonna do tear a strip there, tear it off of him and then lay it down. Does that make sense? Don't push against him to rip that tape off, okay? Sometimes that kind of gets a little bit uncomfortable for them. So we've got figure eight. Okay, we do at least 2 total figure eights. But whether you do them in succession, whether you do one now and another one later, totally up to you. Okay, art form. We're also going to do heel locks. We're going to do medial heel locks, lateral heel locks. Okay, so I'm going to do a forward heel lock. I start kind of on the front of the leg. I kind of want to crisscross over the top of that lateral malleolus. I'm going to lock the heel on the medial aspect, and then I'm going to end up on top of the foot, tear it off of the patient, and then lay it down. Learning the angles on heel locks and figure eights is far and away the hardest part about ankle taping. Okay, it's not even close. So the first efforts, you're going to look horrible. That's okay. You get better every time you try it. So I just did a forward heel lock, okay, forward medial heel lock, because I locked the medial aspect of the heel. So now I'm going to do a lateral heel lock. Same thing, angle across that medial malleolus. I'm going to lock that heel in and end up on top of the foot. Okay? You could do a reverse heel lock in either direction. Forward's not better than reverse. You could do 2 forwards on each side. You could do 1 forward, 1 reverse on each side. You could do 2 reverse on each side. You could do 2 forward on one side, 2 reverse on the other. Art form. Okay? Reverse heel locks, instead of starting on the leg, start on the foot. I'm not as proficient with these, but same story. This is a lateral heel lock in reverse. I just am reversing the order in which I'm doing things. Okay? If I was going to do the medial one in reverse, I start on the foot, lock that heel, and bring it back up to a starting point on the leg. Everybody cool? So we do at least 2 heel locks on each side. Okay? Forward, reverse, alternate, doesn't matter. Order in which you do them, I don't care. Right? After we're done with our heel locks and figure eights, now we got to close everything up, right? Tie everything together. So this is already pretty much done down here from our horseshoes and our basket stuff, and then the heel locks and figure eights. Now we kind of started about the level of the ankle, and we're just going to put that's a nice circumferential strip because that's where his leg's a cylinder, right? And now I'm just going to overlap each one of those strips, overlap about a half, moving proximal. That angle that I'm using gets a little bit bigger towards his head as I move up his leg because his leg gets a little wider there, it tapers up, right? And I overlap them until I get to where I feel comfortable, until I get up above and anchor to the skin. I'm not going to do that to him for our purposes. Take it easy on him, okay? Some people do, after they get to the top, I'll do another 1 or 2 down here just because they like the way it looks, so they just want to add a little extra support to it. Okay, whatever. Okay, in essence, you're done now. I've got this thing that, it's an art form, right? I got a little artistic flair, okay? I do this little strip over the top of the ankle. So I pull it out, I come over the top, I tear it, I anchor it down, I smooth everything out, I snap off the heel, and I bump it.